Yeah, we can start. Warm welcome to all of you. This is amazing or a fantastic symposia that we're having ahead of us. When I when I studied medicine in med school, it was very squarey. I was taught how the body works. I was taught all the cells. I was taught almost like math. This is a human being. How do we walk? How do we eat? What happens with the food? Everything. It was very, very technocratical. What they forgot, this is what we are going to focus today. What affect the human behind it? It will be a fantastic session, this one, because we all are humans, and we feel and we react on very different ways on different things that happens to us. Just saying the word cancer to a person, I did that as a doctor. You can see in the face what happens inside the brain, in the soul, when you say the word cancer. It's amazing. It's always like you want to go up there and take the person in your hand, because it's so much going on in their soul and the brain. Not only the cancer, even though today we are very good in curing cancer today. So we will start the first. Now we'll start with Maria. Maria she's a Deputy Secretary General for Young Cancer Sweden. Warm welcome, applaud. And then we will continue, and we have one of the speakers online from Cambridge. So it's going to be. We have good technicians.
That's good.
I hope so. So, Maria, you are both General Secretary for Young Cancer Sweden, and what I've been told is that it's an organization for people between 16 and 35, approximately,
right.
who are living with cancer themselves or supporting someone close to them. We had a session yesterday talking about the relations, what happens to when you have a relative or a close one that has a tough disease. So it will be fantastic to hear you. And you will bring a background in leadership within Swedish child rights organization, with a long-standing focus on how young people's lived experience should shape the support they receive.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Yes.
Please, the floor is yours.
So I have what I hope to be a brief presentation. I will try to be disciplined. So yes, I'm the acting Secretary General for this organization, and I will use the Swedish name, Ung Cancer, and it translates to young cancer. So yes, and as Johan told us already, it's an organization where we organize young people who has the diagnosis themselves, some kind of cancer diagnosis, or are close to someone who has. It can be a friend or a partner or a parent or a sibling. So all our members are between 16 and 35. And we have approximately 4,300 members all across Sweden. And our aim, our purpose, is to raise voices and provide support and talk to decision makers to make the situation for our target groups as good as it can be. And I'll now try to show you a very brief little clip or film that is supposed to, and I think if it works very much, let you get the feeling of our members, what they can feel when they are new to this situation. Yes, and I think maybe the message came across what our members, the biggest feeling from our members, the one thing they all tell us is the feelings of loneliness, of abandonment, and I have heard this throughout these couple of days. It doesn't matter what kind of condition you suffer from. This is very much, you very much have this in common, that you feel very lonely. And that's why we are here at Ung Cancer, to provide community, togetherness, because that's what our members tell us, that the support from the society isn't always what they need. And they lack information, and they get often very good care. So when they are in the healthcare system, they are taken care of in terms of treatment, but the outside world they are left a bit for themselves. And what I speak about today, it's our source of information. Our number one source of information is our members. So sometimes, of course, we use research when we speak, but our main focus when we talk to you is what our members tells us. And a couple of years ago, we produced this report, and we talked to our members in different ways. And we have a lot of material of this sort, so you can check it out on our website. And a few findings were that 59% affected of the young people that we talked to felt that they were very much alone, diagnosed young adults, and even a bigger number when it came to young people close to someone affected by cancer. And I'm going to show you a quote next. It's from a young person who has transitioned from pediatric care to adult care, and that's a situation that we also get a lot of stories from, because you feel very much like the child, and with with a bunch of elderly people. So that's to add to the loneliness and abandonment. You are very much. Fortunately, it's a small group in our target group that gets the diagnosis every year, but it also comes with the feeling of being very lonely. And we offer different kinds of support. We focus quite a lot of guidance within the system, and it's hard for everybody to navigate different authorities like unemployment office, your university, maybe an authority where you can get a benefit. It's hard for all of us, but when you are very young, it's even harder. You haven't had the experience of having to navigate that, and the system isn't built for that either. And our number one purpose is togetherness, to offer community, to offer peers that can support each other and not feeling alone. But we also, and that's also important, because our members, as I said, they lack different kind of support when they leave the hospitals. So, for example, rehabilitation. So we provide different kinds of rehabilitation as well, and also which is maybe unusual for an NGO in Sweden, with financial support. We provide cash transfers also. You can apply for it, because the Swedish system is very much built on that you have had a job, for example, and if you are studying, of course all of our economy deteriorate when we are ill, but if you are young, it's even worse very often. Yes, that was my brief presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Maria. Oh, struck my heart. So, questions? Yes.
I can speak.
Yeah, you can speak, and I can say the question. Yeah, in loud.
Thank you so much for sharing. It's always very, very emotive. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. It's very emotive. And my name is Magdalena Decor. I'm Chief Executive Officer of F8 Europe Foundation. We are a network of patient organizations across 40 countries, including outside of Europe. And we have a lot of people living with inherited lipid disorders. Those are genetic, so people basically are born with those. Some of those conditions are very rare and affect young generations before the 10th anniversary or the 10th birthday or 20th birthday, when they have very serious cardiovascular conditions, heart attacks, multiple heart operations, and so on and so forth. My question to you is how organizations like ours could potentially collaborate with organizations like yours against the current finally trend in Europe to recognize the voice of young people as co-designer of healthcare systems, because I think what you have shown demonstrates important data, especially in the context of mental health, isolation, lack of information that it's geared at younger people. I applaud you on what you did, and I would love to learn how we can collaborate, because I think it's as well about building synergies and passing on the knowledge.
That's a very good question, and collaboration in itself is very much needed, because our resources are scarce, of course, that we share that with every organization represented, not every, but many organizations represented in this room, and also find the common denominators and voice them, I think, and really do it, because as the resources are scarce, we need to focus on our own, but to cooperate in order to take a broader perspective. I'm struggling to find the word. Lyfta blicken, to see the big picture together. I think that's very much appreciated from our side.
What we notice is lack of qualified psychologists who know how to speak to young people, the language of young people, and understand the implication of the condition. So in your case, it's cancer. In our case, it might be heart attacks and so on and so forth. And I think we need to be more present, saying that those are unmet needs. So I'm happy to take it offline and maybe connect with you. It would be really interesting.
And I see my colleagues here nodding.
Yes. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Very good. This is what it's all about, to connect and do something together. Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
add
Maybe
something?
one more question.
Oh,
Maybe
sorry,
we'll take
one more
that,
question.
No,
Yes.
sorry, and I think it's just to build on what has just been said. So I'm from the International Diabetes Federation, and indeed, you know, the transition from pediatric care to adult care is one of the big issues, the loneliness. So again, we are sharing the same challenges. And we have a very strong youth group. And again, I would like to offer the opportunity to collaborate and make sure, because these young people, they not only represent the youth voice, but also the voice of people with lived experience. And living it, you know, from a very early age, they can really contribute in many of the discussions. So giving them the voice is definitely key to the future of our healthcare systems.
Amazing. Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Tack. Ska jag sitta här eller?
Ja, du kan sitta här om du vill. Om du vill. So welcome. Next person is, we're going to connect to all the way to Cambridge. I think you hear us by now, Christi. Yes, there you are.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Christi Deaton. She's an Emerita professor of nursing in the Department of Public Health and Primary Care in the University of Cambridge School of Clinical Medicine in UK. She was actually one of the two leads of European Society of Cardiology's first consensus statement on mental health and cardiovascular disease. So we have more in common there. So please, Christi, we are looking forward to your speak.
Thank you very much. I'm really delighted to be here. I'm just sorry that I can't be there in person because I know it's been a wonderful conference so far. So I will be talking about the consensus statement and some of the things that we believe are important to do. So if you can just move the next slide, please. And that's just a declaration of interest. The next slide, please. Okay. I hope I can convince you that there is a dangerous duo here, that we are talking about the interaction between mental health and cardiovascular disease. If we start with people who don't already have heart disease, we do know that people who have depression and anxiety or who have post-traumatic stress disorder have a higher risk of then going on and developing cardiovascular disease, having a heart attack, an MI, as we say, compared to people who don't have a mental health condition. So if you have depression, you're up to 50% more likely to then have a subsequent MI or heart attack. Next, if you'll advance the slide a bit, we also know that it's not just depression, anxiety, and PTSD. It's the stressors that we experience in our lives that can also contribute to a higher risk for heart disease. And that can be from your work, from financial pressures, and certainly from, say, domestic violence, or even loneliness and social isolation are really important as risk factors for a number of different types of cardiovascular disease. And this seems to have a stronger impact on women than it does in men. So psychosocial distress in a recent, very large global study indicated that women had a higher risk as a result of developing heart disease, MI, as a result of psychosocial distress compared to men. So next slide, please. And then if someone does have heart disease, then the prevalence of mental health conditions are much higher than in the general population. About 4% of the general population has depression or anxiety, and it's 20 to 40% among people who have heart disease. And we find that the prevalence rates are higher in women compared to men and in younger people compared to older individuals. Unfortunately, the dangerous duo part comes in because If you do have heart disease and depression or anxiety, then it's associated with worse outcomes. So you're more likely to have a subsequent cardiovascular event, which could be cause hospitalization or another MI, and it contributes to a higher all-cause mortality after you've had an acute event. Advance the slide, please. And while there are a number of mechanisms as to why this occurs, and some of them are biological, we also know that if you're depressed or if you're highly anxious, it affects your ability to really participate in the management of your condition. So it affects your adherence to medication and your ability to change and have a healthier lifestyle. Next slide, please. So what is it that we can do? Well, there are a few things that we advocate in this consensus statement, and one of those is around developing what we call a psychocardio team. Most healthcare professionals work within larger multidisciplinary teams. This may not be your core team that you see every day, but you have a team of people that you collaborate with, and that can be primary care providers, it can be other specialists, it can be social workers, other allied health professionals, and so forth. But we need to make sure that a mental health professional is included as part of that. So that just needs to be someone that we can collaborate with, and it will take different, can be different in different systems, whether it's a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or another mental health professional. It is just someone that you have a good relationship with, that you can refer to, that you can talk about, that can provide advice to you, and can help you when you're trying to manage people who have both mental health conditions and heart disease. So advance the slide, please. You may have to double click it, I think. There we go. Because of the prevalence of mental health conditions and the prognostic impact that it can have, we advocate that people with heart disease are screened, and that's not something that we routinely do in practice. We think that it should be done following a new diagnosis or someone who's been hospitalized, they've had an MI, or they've had another event that has led to hospitalization, or any time that it seems clinically indicated. And of course, you would also do it in follow-up. And because screening can be very simple, we advocate a multi-step process. It can be done by anybody in the psychocardio team. So you could even give out questionnaires that can be very useful at reception when someone comes in for a clinic visit. So the how of screening is we advocate that you start with a 2-item questionnaire. So it's not going to take time out of the clinical visit. It takes 1 to 2 minutes for someone to answer this. You can use one specifically for anxiety. There's one specifically for depression. And then if that's positive, you go on to use a more comprehensive questionnaire, which will give you more information about the severity of the patient's symptoms and about what's kind of going on with them. That should be discussed with the patient, their carer, their family, and then discussed with the psychocardio team so that you can make a decision about, okay, what further evaluation do we need? What kind of treatment might we want to use that's appropriate for that patient based on both the severity of their symptoms and their individual preferences for care. Next slide, please. So our consensus statement contains a lot of information that we hope is going to be implemented in practice, because what we wanted to do was to increase the awareness of the importance of this interaction between mental health and cardiovascular disease, that we consider them, they're risk factors for each other. They both have an impact on the outcome of the other. We need a lot more research in this area because we don't really know the best way to treat people and how it's going to impact their heart outcomes as well as their mental health. But there are things that we can already do in practice, things that we can implement that will that we can then test and see if it makes a difference. So if you'll advance the slide, we've talked about the psychocardio team, having that collaboration with the mental health professional and making that's just part of how we go about caring for patients. Advance the slide one more time, please. And that this is about screening all patients because of the prevalence of mental health conditions. And those that are positive in screening will need further care, more input from the psychocardio team, and appropriate treatment. We talk about stepped care treatment, and that is that you make decisions based on patient severity and on their preferences, and then you can escalate treatment as needed. And then there will be a small number of patients that will have a severe mental illness. And this is a group that we talked a lot about in our consensus statement, because they're not people that oftentimes get the same care and attention for their heart disease, and they're at higher risk, as do people without severe mental illness. So that's something that we also have to think about. So if you'll advance the slide, please. We wrote the consensus statement really for healthcare professionals, but we've also put out a patient version of this, and this was written by a few members of the task force, but also with members of the ESC Patient Forum. And that collaboration with that patient forum has been really important to everything that we do. Advance the slide one more time for me. We also have in our supplementary materials patient perspectives, and the patient forum very kindly shared with us. So we have 10 or 11 perspectives. These are narratives or stories that the patients told us about how cardiovascular disease, their diagnosis, the events they had affected their mental health. So they're very powerful narratives, and I think it's important that if you're interested that you read these, because then it really brings in to really highlights how important it is that we deal with mental health, that we really can't treat cardiovascular disease without treating the whole person. And that's what we're talking about here, that we're not treating disease, we're treating a person who happens to have long-term conditions, and that can have a big effect on mental health conditions. It can have a big effect on their quality of life and on their lives in general. And we need to consider the person who has the disease first, and not the disease that happens to be in a person. So I'm going to stop there, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Amazing. Create a lot of questions. Please, open for discussions or questions. The first question I got in mind was, this is extremely good, and we have a European, maybe you will talk about this later, Elisabetta, because we have a good collaboration with all countries in Europe. Is this spread out to all countries? Is this spread out to the medical professions so they can collaborate all over Europe and have the same program?
Yes, so the consensus statement, like guidelines, is available freely. And I think it's something like 57 countries that are members of the ESC. And we also have a number of affiliate members, so it reaches out everywhere globally, from China to the US and Canada and so forth, South America. So these are available. You don't have to be a member of the ESC to download any of the guidelines or the consensus statement, and actually you can download the patient version as well. So it is available. These are generally get translated into. We rely a lot on the national societies, so the cardiology national societies, to translate these. And I know that in several European countries, there have been quite a lot of comment about this and a lot of people talking about it. So I think we're getting the word out about how important this is. This was the first statement that the ESC has put out about mental health. So hopefully that's really getting to people.
Thank you very much. I'm listening now to the audience. Do you have more questions? Another question? Yes, Elisabetta.
Maybe I can ask a question as a follow-up of the point that you have just asked in terms of the but more from the practical side of things, the uptake. This is a consensus statement, is guidance, but are there realities across Europe where this psychocardiology is already happening? We have, of course, the same sort of issues in cancer, with psycho-oncology being a sort of subspecialty in a sense. This is already a reality. There is variety, of course, across Europe. There are countries doing better than others, but it has been quite integrating this psychological support in cancer care. I was wondering what is the status in cardiology, whether there are already some good practices, lessons to be learned from the field.
There are, but we realized that there would be a great variety across different countries. So we've not said this is how you have to do it. We've said this is what needs to be done, and it needs to fit with your system. So we recognize that it's not going to be available to everyone. There are some really good examples. There are some good examples in Sweden and other countries where there are actually psychocardiologists and psychocardio teams. But in other places, you're a mental health professional that you collaborate with, maybe someone in the community, and not have a formal professional relationship, but they are people that we need to make those collaborations with, just like we do with primary care. So we've not dictated how it should be done, because we recognize that there's a lot of differences. But there are places, and certainly if you think about places where they do heart transplantation, or they put people on artificial hearts, if you like, or left ventricular assist devices, they often have psychologists on staff. Some ICUs have psychologists, so these are other kind of links you can make. But I would say most cardiology practices don't have psychologists that are part of that practice. And that's why we say there needs to be this wider collaboration. Who's in the community? What are the mental health professionals? And I heard someone say earlier that there aren't enough psychologists, and I agree with that. There aren't enough. But if we start to raise the awareness and we talk about how this actually, it does impact people's outcomes, hopefully we can start to get more people interested in this type of work, and hopefully more practitioners who are saying, yes, we want to work with people who have long-term conditions and be available, whether it's heart disease or whether it's cardiology, heart disease or cancer or COPD or anything else.
Thank you very much, Christi, and thank you for the questions. I think, please stay online, because
I will.
yes, because questions may arise during the symposia. But next person will be Elisabetta, and to make this European really, Elisabetta is responsible. She's the CEO actually for the European Cancer Organization in Belgium. So a warm applause to listen what happens in the EU. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to talk about this very important topic of supporting people with long-term conditions. Very often we see that patients are taken care of very well from a medical point of view, but less from the point of view of quality of life, of ensuring that they receive a holistic support going beyond really the medical treatment. What I will do this afternoon is to elaborate a little bit on the, let's say, the challenges, quality of life challenges that patients with cancer are facing, and then I will look more specifically at women, the particular challenges, the burden, more specifically in this population, in the female population. First, I would like to start with a statement which is already something that you mentioned at the beginning of the session about the fact that cancer diagnosis is really like a tsunami. is something which is turning people's life upside down. So you really struggle to cope with what happens to you. It's really very overwhelming, I would say. And throughout the full cancer pathway, from the moment you are diagnosed through treatment, rehabilitation, survivorship, the struggle somewhat continues, and support is needed throughout all these different phases. So, in a nutshell, you can see on these slides what cancer disrupts in terms of every dimension of people's life, and often this is not only for the patient themselves, but also for caregivers, for this family, where there is really a lot of, let's say, suffering relating to the diagnosis and the treatment. So first, physical health, of course, fatigue, pain, cognitive changes. Very often we have patients really struggling from the point of view of impairment at cognitive level, which can create huge difficulties for patients. Emotional health, anxiety, depression, they have already been mentioned, fear of relapse. Social life, isolation. Maria covered very well isolation in relation to young people with cancer. Role changes, all of a sudden you can no longer do all what you were doing before, and stigma. Especially for certain types of cancer, we can think about gynecological cancer, for example, related to HPV. There is also this additional element in some cases of stigma. Economic stability, income loss, financial toxicity, so financial distress due to the cost of cancer treatment or due to the fact that people are no longer able to work. Identity, body image, sexuality, self-confidence. Different patients will suffer in a different way. And of course, there will be some determinants related to gender, related to age. We have already touched upon young cancer patients. Socioeconomic factors which will impact on the disruption that each individual is facing. But overall, for women, the impact is more intense and complex. And I can elaborate a little bit more on why this is the case. First, body image and femininity. So this is something which is very strong, probably stronger for women compared to men. If we think about hair loss, I know that men don't like to lose their hair, but I think that for a woman this is really even more problematic to cope with. All of a sudden you don't have your breast any longer? Do you feel like a woman? Or all of a sudden it's like if a part of you has gone? Weight changes. Sexual health. This is really, people, they don't like to talk about this, but it's really also a big factor in relation to quality of life. Loss of desire, pain. Women often suffer from gynecological cancers in addition to breast cancer, and this clearly has a direct impact in relation to sexuality. And of course, early menopause, because very often cancer treatment is leading young women. You didn't mention this, Maria, but this is a huge problem of these young women going into menopause when they are in their 20s, and as a result of that, also having problems of fertility. Not every patient is no longer fertile, but it happens quite often. What can be done? What impact this can have on an individual in terms of thinking, you know, will I be able to have children in the future? Or if I am pregnant and I end up being diagnosed with cancer, what is going to happen to me and my baby? The emotional aspect from the point of view of protecting the family, protecting your children, your partner, your parents also from distress. So there is a tendency in women to keep everything inside to avoid transferring this distress to the family. Economic vulnerability, this is really a big problem for women because often they work part-time. They are in less stable jobs, so job insecurity is higher, which means more often there is a loss of income. And anxiety and depression are higher in women compared to men. What can improve quality of life for women with cancer? A lot of different things. We have already covered, also in relation to cardiovascular disease, the importance of psychological screening and support, mental health support, I say at every stage of the disease, from the diagnosis moment throughout the whole process. This psychological support is extremely important. Fertility preservation. How can we ensure that when you discuss treatment for cancer, you are also offered this service of fertility preservation, that there is an open discussion. Some countries are doing quite well. Some other countries, they are not doing that well in integrating that aspect into, let's say, the standard of care which are provided to women. In the same vein, sexual health services to be integrated in the care which is provided. Rehabilitation, this is very important because of all the side effects that are experienced by the patient, fatigue, cognitive function, physical function. Support for caregivers. Women, they have a huge burden from the point of view of being caregivers. So they are patients, and at the same time, they have this responsibility of being caregivers. Very often that burden, that responsibility is more on women than in men. I would say that Sweden is certainly doing very well in terms of sharing that responsibility more equally between men and women, but very often across Europe, the reality is that women are really doing most of the caregiving work in the family. So how they can be supported in that role. And you already mentioned, Maria, this peer support. How we can ensure that we can help these patients not to feel lonely, to be supported, to have peers with whom they can exchange. They can support each other in that very difficult journey. And finally, but very, very importantly, employment protections, financial counseling. There is this, what we call financial toxicity, which means really this financial distress suffered by many patients and survivors of cancer. How we can take some measures to support these individuals, also in terms of ensuring they can maintain their jobs, they can have the opportunity to go back to work when they feel better. So cancer is not only about survival. Cancer is about much more than survival. And at different stages of the disease, we will need different types of support. But in a nutshell, you see here really what is needed to ensure that patients are supported, but also that they can have better outcomes, clinical outcomes, because if you are not well psychologically, you will have less good outcomes from a medical perspective too. And this is something which Christi also elaborated from the point of view of the negative impact of mental health on cardiovascular disease. It's the same for cancer. If you are not supported mentally, you will do less well also in terms of how you respond to your treatment. Finally, I would like to tell you a bit about an initiative which is new. The European Cancer Organization that I represent is launching this document today. In fact, there was a launch this morning in the European Parliament, and this is a tool, we call it Women and Cancer Policy Index. Is a tool for policymakers, but also for advocates. It's a scoring system on how countries are performing against a number of indicators. This is not only about quality of life. This is broader than that. It's also looking at mortality, from women's cancer, from breast, cervical cancer. Mortality is also in here, prevention as well. There is also elements related to screening. But you also find elements like fertility preservation or support for caregivers, which are really at the heart of this quality of life dimension that I've covered, which are captured in this, I would say, scorecard. So the countries are evaluated against all these different indicators, and then on the basis of that, you see a map with different colors, which is the performance of the country against all these indicators collectively. And this is a fantastic tool from an advocacy perspective because it allows you to really enter into a discussion with policymakers in the different countries to see how you perform compared to similar countries, neighboring countries, for example, and then to see where there could be areas for improvement in one specific region or country. So I just wanted to share this. We do a lot of work targeting at women. Specifically, we look at all patients, of course, not only women in our organization, but we have a strand of work specifically dedicated to women because there are some specific, I would say, needs for this population, and having some sort of gender-sensitive policies can help a lot in improving really support for patients. And with that, I have finished.
Thank you very much. So this fantastic report then, is it available now?
It's available. It was launched this morning, so it should be available from our website. If you Google European Cancer Organization, probably in our homepage, you can easily find it.
Okay. And you are collaborating with all the European countries in this aspect, in your profession?
Yes, our organization, the European Cancer Organization, represents professionals and patients. So our stakeholders are basically our members, are professional societies representing the range of different professionals working in cancer: oncologists, surgeons, radiotherapists, nurses, psycho-oncologists, nutritionists, etc. So all the range of professionals in cancer, and in total we have 40 European umbrella organizations representing professionals. This is complemented by some 20 patient organizations at European level representing patients for different tumor types or different, I would say, patient groups. So, for example, we have the European umbrella organization representing patients, young patients with cancer in our membership. But we work with European umbrella organizations.
Okay. Thank you very much. Questions from the audience? Yes?
Much for this presentation. I always say, touch wood, hopefully I won't be one of those women who are affected with cancer, but the statistics are extremely grim. That said, I happen to live in Switzerland and I'm under 50. And I would love to hear your opinion. I appreciate that we are, specifically, I will be talking about a country outside of the European Union, but I think it's extremely important for an overall international learnings and advocacy. In 2014, Swiss government decided to remove breast cancer screening access and reimbursement. And it's been widely published and criticized. So it's been removed from the, Switzerland has got a slightly different healthcare system where everybody pays for themselves. There is no national healthcare system like Sweden, for example. But it was considered, based on available data, not effective and not really driving decrease in cancer in women. How organizations like yours can, for example, help support individual patients or women who hopefully don't want to be patients to actually self-advocate? Because I think very often women don't necessarily know that there are patient organizations. People don't want to be necessarily associated with patient organizations when they do preventative screening. How organizations like yours and what you did can help individuals with self-advocacy, for example?
I have a question for you, Magda. The screening program was stopped completely, or it was adjusted from the point of view of maybe modifying the age group or changing the frequency of, because for me it's really a very surprising decision.
Thank you for the follow-up question. Yes, so it was first stopped from the national one and then turned into a cantonal sort of what's the word I'm missing right now in English, sort of responsibility, and it does vary. So for the sake of exercise, I googled today in the morning, if I in my canton wanted to have a test, I would have to pay roughly 400 Swiss francs. It's an equivalent of 400 euro if it's just me.
So basically it depends on the canton. Some cantons
yes,
may
but
have
the national screening was removed, which completely shocks me in the day and age of Beat Cancer Plan, for example.
Yeah, in some countries can be a regional competence. So, for example, I live in Belgium. In Belgium, is the same. You have initiatives like related to screening programs, which are at regional level rather than a national level. So you can have variations between one region and another region. But overall, let's say the trend is very similar. And there is also guidance being released by the EU on screening for breast, colorectal, cervical, and a few other tumor types. So in principle, countries should follow the guidance which is released at EU level. So I think it's quite surprising somewhat that a canton may, especially in a rich country like Switzerland, may decide to, let's say, move away from what is considered to be the good practice for cancer screening, because of course these screening policies, guidance is the result of a lot of years of looking at the best possible approach to be taken in terms of risk benefits. So my advice would be certainly to mobilize yourself as a community of patients, if possible, and try to change this decision based on the fact that there is good practice, there is guidance at the EU level. Switzerland is not part of the EU, but still, I would say that in the field of this guidance, I don't see why there should be a different approach being taken by...
You know what, in your answer already you nailed it on the head, because you said patient organization, you should...
Yeah.
You should mobilize yourself. The whole purpose of having preventative screening programs.
It's not patients.
It's not about patients. And I think, I just wanted to add maybe an additional point, because now with the European Women's Health group led by Peggy Maguire. Yes, I think there is this whole new initiative around gender equality, because I find it extremely...
It's true what you say, that this is preventative, but at the same time, if you take Europa Donna, for example, as the advocacy group for breast cancer across Europe, screening is on top of their priority. And similarly, there are a lot of, maybe we shouldn't call them patient groups, maybe we should call them more advocacy group, which are very vocal in making the case for the screening programs. So they exist in many other countries. I hope that there is also a sort of similar equivalent, or maybe even a representation of these groups in Switzerland, which can be vocal and can try to redress somewhat the decision of this specific canton.
Very good discussion, and thank you all for being here today. I think to summarize, it's amazing with this conference that we can connect to the different important question, and we can use each other to help you as a country or help another advocacy group or whatever. So thank you for being here today and listen to these fantastic speakers, and a big round of applause for them again, Maria, Christi and Elisabetta. Thank you very much. So thank you for today.